All right, what's going on everybody? Carter here from CourseCreatorPro.com, and in this video we are going to be talking about Facebook ads. Now over the past 2 years we have paid Facebook nearly $1 million to show our ads to people all over the world in an ad spend, which is either awesome or kind of scary. Now, in addition to making a great return on investment with said $1 million paid to Facebook, we have also learned a thing or two about running ads on the platform, which we will of course be sharing with you here today. So after spending almost $1 million on Facebook ads, here is what we've learned. Tip number 1, you don't know what you don't know until you know. Let me explain. Now I know what you're thinking, $1 million and this is the first tip you come up with, pretty lame, but it is valuable, I promise. So when it comes to running Facebook ads, there are definitely some do's and some don'ts. Don't scale too quickly, don't have too broad an audience, have an engaging hook, use a lookalike, retarget warm leads, the list goes on. But what many gurus won't tell you is that when all of that is said and done, you enter this space where you're essentially just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, or maybe a more official term is you are testing everything. So to reiterate, you don't know what you don't know until you test, and then you know. And this testing space, in my opinion, is where the real results are achieved on Facebook ads. Headlines, hooks, thumbnails, pictures, copy, test it all. We've been doing this for years and are constantly wrong. Take a look at this recent ad where we tested 3 headlines. After a week, headline 2 has the lowest cost per click, lead conversions, and the most purchases. Had we just run the initial headline that we thought would do best, headline 1, we would be sitting with an ad that is bringing in less than half the purchases of headline 2 and would have missed out on hundreds and eventually maybe thousands of dollars. Luckily, we ran this test for about $100 total and we're left with a higher converting ad. So when it comes to Facebook ads, which is essentially spending lots of your hard-earned money, assume nothing and test everything. The results just might and probably will surprise you. All right, moving on to tip number 2, which is to optimize for purchases, not leads. Now this one might be somewhat controversial among those of you who have been exclusively running lead gen ads, but this is something we have tested extensively to the conclusion that all of our ads are now optimized for purchases and not leads, and here's why. Facebook loves to do a good job when it comes to making conversions on the ads you're running. Facebook also happens to be very good, like scary good, at knowing people's shopping and buying habits. So if you tell Facebook to go out and find people to sign up for your free webinar to get a lead, they know the exact people to target in order to get you the leads at the lowest cost possible. They are extremely good at what they do, and that's why most marketers like us use them. Now the only problem is that the people who are willing to sign up for your webinar might not be the same people who are willing to open up their wallets and actually buy your product. Now as I said earlier, we are a firm believer in testing, and we tested optimizing for leads versus purchases till we were blue in the face, and across the board, optimizing for leads got us cheaper leads compared to optimizing for purchases, but optimizing for purchases brought in more sales, which was more money, right? Essentially, we are paying more money for a higher quality lead that has a better chance of buying from us. And I mean, that is the entire reason we're all doing this, right? But moving on to tip number 3, which is campaign budget optimization versus ad set budget optimization. Spoiler alert, they both work. The only difference we have found between putting your budget at the campaign level versus the ad set level is how hands-on you want to be with your ads and your testing. Now let's say you have 3 different audiences you want to test out and you put them in 3 different ad sets. If you use the campaign budget optimization, you can set your daily limit, and then Facebook will decide which of those audiences or ad sets to spend the money on based on how well it thinks or sees that each audience is converting. So if you like a hands-off approach, then this is definitely a great way to test. Now for those of us who are more hands-on, it can be somewhat maddening not to know if an audience or an ad set isn't converting well simply because it's worse, or because Facebook decided not to put any money behind it or show it to anybody. Now to put our minds at ease, we have ad set budget optimization, where we can easily spend the same amount of money on each audience at the ad set level, analyze the results ourselves, and then decide where to spend more or less. So like I said, both will work, it just depends how much you want to blindly let Facebook decide where to spend your money. It's also worth noting that we have done a couple isolated tests on this, nothing super extensive, but did find that the ad set Facebook decided to spend most of the budget on was CBO, or campaign budget optimization, was also the ad set we found to be the most successful in our own ABO, ad set budget optimization tests. Moving on, tip number 4, creative is better than strategy. In a nutshell, make better ads. No matter how much of a Facebook ads scientist you are, you will only get so far if the ad itself is no good. Now we could dedicate an entire video on just how to make better ads, and while we won't be diving into depth on that subject here, you can check out our paid course down below in the description, where we have an entire section of videos dedicated to creating ads that sell. Now I won't talk any more about our paid course except to say that the #1 flaw we see in our students' ads is a poor hook. Facebook is all about grabbing people's attention so that they stop scrolling to watch your ad. And essentially you have 3 seconds without any sound for the most part to achieve that. Now if you have a bad hook and nobody stops, then it doesn't matter how good the rest of your ad is, as the majority of people will scroll right on by without watching anything. So get back to the drawing board and start making better ads. All right, tip number 5, learning limited means nothing. If you've run Facebook ads before, you are all too familiar with whether or not your ads have a green active dot next to them or a learning limited yellow dot. Now what a yellow dot means is that your ad set has failed to get 50 conversions within the week of its learning phase. Now Facebook will tell you that in order to exit the learning phase, you, among other things, need to spend more money. Get 50 conversions and then it will become active. Convenient, right? Give us more money and we'll fix the problem. The only problem is that if you are advertising to a small geographical area or selling high ticket items, the probability of you getting 50 conversions or purchases in a week is super low. I mean, that would be amazing, but probably not gonna happen. And if you are targeting a small area, you can't just spend more money or you will exhaust your audience super fast. So what do? Nothing. In our opinion, it means nothing. Your ad is still being delivered to the same as if it was active and had the green dot next to it. In fact, some of our most successful ads never went active, but were giving us an incredible 10-to-1 ROI. Now, we usually aim for anywhere around 3 or 4 on our paid ads, so this was awesome. And that is what we would tell you to pay attention to when trying to decide whether or not your ad is working. Is it making you more money than you're spending? The rest is just Facebook fluff and you shouldn't pay attention to it. Moving on to tip number 6, which is don't waste warm leads. Now, one of the biggest things we have learned is that you need to be retargeting your leads. This is another topic we could create a whole video on. Again, you can check out our paid course down below in the description if you want to dive in deeper. But as the rule of 7 simply states, the typical consumer must see your ad or product an average of 7 times before they will buy. Now, we ran Facebook ads for years before we finally developed an effective retargeting system. And once we did, it doubled our monthly revenue. But really, in a nutshell, we were retargeting super warm leads with a small discount on our products, small enough not to cut into our margins by too much, but just big enough that the perceived value they'd be saving was too good to pass up and they purchased. Seems simple, but too many of our students are not effectively doing this and thus letting warm leads get lost along the way. All right, on to our last tip, number 7, don't always blame the Facebook ad. Now, we've had students come to us seeking help as their Facebook ads just weren't working. And in most cases, the culprit is a mediocre ad or a campaign that isn't set up correctly, but that's not always the case. If you have an ad that is getting great cost per clicks or cost per lead numbers, but still isn't bringing in any purchases, then you need to look further down your funnel. The Facebook ad is just one step in the buyer's journey, but once the ad has gotten someone to click away from Facebook and onto your sales page or your lead magnet, its job is done, and it is then your funnel's job to convert to the sale. And unless every step in your funnel is optimized, you won't be achieving optimal results. So take a second look at your landing pages and see how they can be improved. Is your offer clear? Is your value stack efficient? Is it easy to navigate? Is your price point accurate? All these things can be tested and improved upon. And that brings us full circle from our first point, which was to test. You don't have to take anything I've said here at face value. You can and you should be running your own A/B test to see what works for you, your funnel, and your product. Facebook ads are gray science at best, and there really is no one-size-fits-all path to success, but hopefully these tips will get you headed in the right direction. And if you are interested in learning more, we do have a free 1-hour training that goes into more detail on how we market and sell products online. Like I said, it's free and it's pretty jam-packed with valuable information for anyone in the digital marketing space. A to Z, we go through our entire 7-figure funnel and walk you through how to replicate it in your own business. We'll put a link for that down below, but if you have any further questions, as always, please let us know.